Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. I am Father George Ehusani, and I have with me in the studio once again Majeed, Dahiru, staff of Terra, and then political analyst. And we are to discuss this time. There is the impression that some people have that Nigerian government or governance in Nigeria is a criminal enterprise.
Yes.
Criminal enterprise because, see, Muhammad Buhari came in 2015 and the fundamental plank of his administration is to fight corruption. And many Nigerians voted him because they remember Idi Buhari in the 80s, and they feel that he will stamp out corruption. In the last few weeks, the kind of revelations we have been hearing about what has gone on in the 8 years of Buhari is mind-boggling.
Yes.
Then we have situations where people in very high positions have the burden of corrupt practices that they are carrying at all levels.
Yes.
And you're asking yourself, wait a minute, are we living under a criminal infrastructure,
yes,
superstructure?
Yes.
Is governance really a criminal enterprise? Is government a criminal enterprise in our country?
Yes. Our politicians have gone rogue.
Our politicians have gone rogue.
Yes. You see, it begins with even the process of nomination for
leadership recruitment process
within the political parties. It is on sale to the highest bidder. The corruption that actually drives the leadership recruitment process within the political parties and do the elections proper.
It's liberalized now to the whole society.
It has not just been liberalized, it has resulted into a state capture of Nigeria. And so government now exists for the privileges, for the corrupt privileges of a few people that are privileged to have been elected.
That's why some people talk about government of the rich, by the rich, for the rich.
And that is why our democracy in Nigeria has become delegitimized over time, because it has failed to yield that much anticipated dividends in form of improved security and welfare. And so what you see happening today is that this clique of politicians that have captured the Nigerian state are increasingly squeezing out of the ordinary people and their resources to further their nests. And that is why you see some of these punitive policies coming up from time to time, as if nobody is thinking. Nobody is willing to do the difficult job of governance. It's simply about politics. And so what we have today is simply a product of several years of a degenerate political process that has become a criminal enterprise, a criminal franchise across political party lines. The way out today will be for our president, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, to commit class suicide at this point for the sake of his own self-preservation and the self-preservation of even the ruling elite in Nigeria. Because when the system becomes so degenerate and they are not able to regenerate themselves, like I said earlier, I do not think that the Nigerian people will watch as
that they are permanently perpetually elastic.
Exactly.
And can continue to take the mess.
Exactly. Because our leaders cannot continue to behave like drunken sailors aboard a sinking ship and expect the people aboard that ship to watch them sink the ship. So it is in their own interest now to commit class suicide. If it is the last thing he can do for both us as Nigerians and himself and his legacy, now is the time to do. You see, the last election indicated much that Nigerians are no longer willing to accept the status quo.
I mean, the last election shows that the present president got how much percent
of the total vote cast?
What percentage of Nigerians voted?
More Nigerians voted against him than voted for him.
Correct.
And most importantly, a group of Nigerians decided to vote outside of the establishment bloc for the first time. And the candidate, an anti-establishment candidate, Mr. Peter of the Labour Party, came in close third, even by the declared results. And won across 12 states, with Rivers recently revealed by
as one of his
one of the states, meaning he would have won 13 states why the president would have gone home with just 11 states. That is indicative of something. The Nigerians were willing to take their destiny into their hands in the last election. And the reasons why they went all out to do that is what we are seeing today. Their fears about the continuous rape of our common patrimony is the reason why they opted for somebody they saw as possessing of the leadership qualities that are needed at this time in a country that is as distressed as this. Now, you talked about the former president. Yes, he campaigned on anti-corruption, but we've been having a program here, a project in the last 3 years about nation building, about justice and equity in the society, about citizenship integration. Now, you'll agree with me that in the last 8 years of the Buhari administration, some of these elements were completely absent in the Nigerian state. And that in itself is a recipe for grand corruption. So whereas he was championing corruption through his rhetorics,
nepotism,
sectionalism,
which actually qualified as corruption.
No, those are the building blocks of corruption.
Corruption, yes.
And so he actually installed a corruption infrastructure in governance when he elevated sectionalism and nepotism and tribalism to his state policy, in his appointments, in his program and policies, and the general direction of his government. And so while he was talking about fighting corruption, he actually promoted corruption in his government.
Definitely.
And the result is what you are seeing, the humongous hits that took place under his administration, is what you are seeing being revealed gradually. And more revolutions will come.
Of course.
Now, we are saying we now have a government that has not even committed at all to fighting corruption. It's not even pretending to say that they want to tackle corruption. And they are still living as if it is business as usual. That's what I'm saying.
They are mistaken.
Are they aware of the circumstance under which they came to power and the prevailing circumstances in the country today? Are they aware? You see, the removal of subsidy is the last frontier of economic warfare against the Nigerian people. Because to the ruling class, that burden on them, because they had to spend that money. You see, no matter what you say about subsidy on petrol, that was the most effective government expenditure in Nigeria because it must get to you, it must get to me at the pump. But they can divert this money to procurement, general procurement. And nobody will know and be able to track how they spend the money because from time to time it has been revealed that 60% of the monies that are stolen in Nigeria are actually processed through procurement process.
Yes. Because
you can put anything into procurement and it just goes and it can be legalized.
I mean, you hear the former CBN governor Sanusi,
yes,
Lamido Sanusi, talk about people claiming that they imported fuel and documents are signed and that maybe seven ships landed at the port in Lagos with fuel,
yes,
whereas maybe not up to 2 ships landed.
Exactly.
And they collect subsidy for those ships.
And now, you see, this was not perpetrated by the ordinary
No, not by me, not you.
It was with government connivance.
Of course now.
Nobody can
It's a government staff that will sign the documents now.
It's a government staff that will even tell you to do this and bring your claim for payment and return the money through kickback. Everything is done by government. So the responsibility should go back to government. Why are we having this situation? And why are we not having prosecutions along this line?
And then, I mean, you are seeing how many corrupt persons have been successfully prosecuted and convicted in the last few years.
Father, the corrupt people in Nigeria have been rewarded with the highest offices in the land. That is the reality across board. If you know what people do to become governors, to become senators, to become senate president, to become speaker, you understand what I'm saying. But then you spend money to become a presiding officer of the National Assembly. What hope do we have that the budgeting process will be sanitized? It doesn't make sense any longer. You know what I'm saying? They need to commit class suicide. They need to deprive themselves of this corruption privilege. Otherwise, the Nigerian people may begin to resort to other means, and we don't want to get there. No country survives a revolution. In the same way that no country survives 2 civil wars, for example. Nobody wants a revolution. Democracy remains the best form of government. But our democracy is not democratic enough because the element of good governance is completely absent from it. And we need to have a rethink about our political economic philosophy in this country. I've looked at the entire economic space. Productivity is almost absent. You know what governors just do? They sit down in their state capitals for a few days and then locate to Abuja for the better part of the month.
Yes.
And once they get the allocation, they go back, do some few dispensing of patronage, and then they come back. There is no productivity at the state level because governors have taken the license that government does not do business to simply do politics. As we must tell them that no, government must return to the means of production because until you have a philosophy of business orientation in government, in line with international best practices and corporate governance structure, corruption itself will not be eliminated. And we also need to enlighten Nigerians. We need to continue this enlightenment about our common destiny as Nigerians. To say, look, you have seen that this current hardship does not exclude one ethnicity or one religious group from the other.
We are all in it.
We are all in it. And so next time somebody comes to you to solicit for vote, deploy all the antics of identity politics, telling you that it is our turn, our ethnic group's turn, you must not vote for another person of another religious group. This is a lesson now that as a people, we must come together and evolve a people's consensus to check the elite conspiracy to continuously divide us and rule us.
The image that comes to my mind is that of you have mentioned, a sinking ship.
Yes.
And the captains
is
and the foreman,
like they are drunk. They are just drinking.
They are actually, somebody is stealing the steering. Somebody is stealing the radar. Somebody is stealing this other equipment. They are stealing various equipment of the sinking ship. As if they will be alive when the ship goes down.
Exactly. So it's like they don't know that as drunk as they appear to be now, still riding in long convoys of SUVs without any commitment to cut down on governance costs. You know, earlier we talked about countries that are able to pay subsidies. Go and look at their governance structure.
I mean,
it's lean.
Look, if the baboon only took as the much he can eat, it won't be this bad.
Yes.
But that what is most incongruous is that the baboon is harvesting the maize, is eating just a bit of it and throwing away. Is that not what, like you say, like drunken sailors? Is that not what our leaders are doing?
And that is why sometimes we talk about corruption so much. I feel we are glorifying the situation and giving it more, we are deodorizing the situation. Sir, I actually think
it's madness.
Exactly. It's insanity.
In this studio we have discussed, I brought psychologists here to discuss the issue of mental health. And you remember before the election, I actually issued a statement where I said that anybody going for elective positions, whether at the local government, state or national level, should be taken through psychological testing. Because these behaviors that we are
subhuman.
Seeing, these behaviors are not evidence of people who are sane.
It's subhuman.
This is lunacy.
So when we talk about corruption, sometimes we are trying to make it complex. This is a subhuman trait that we are seeing amongst our leaders. This is an animalistic kind of thinking.
Not even all animals.
Not even all animals. So maybe the lowest of the low.
Look, many animals
are organized.
Many animals pursue their prey to eat. They don't just kill for killing's sake.
At least they share with their family, with their children and their wives.
They pursue to kill, to eat, finish. When they are hungry, they just lie down there. They don't go in search of other animals until they are hungry.
They don't acquire to keep.
Yes.
But in the case of our leaders, so they're even worse than animals in this instance. So I think it's a problem of complete lack of integrity, human integrity. We must understand that as a human being, this is not the way to go. So if we begin to tell them that you're operating at subhuman level, maybe it will jolt them to realize that they are not fully evolved human beings.
I wonder why Nigerians are really not calling for this psychological assessment, psychological test for people who would. I mean, you want to become a vice chancellor of a university. Among the requirements is psychological test.
Of course.
You want to become any serious position in the world. It's your psychological well-being. They will ask you to bring medical tests. They will ask you to bring whatever. Then somebody wants to be governor, somebody wants to be president, and we're not asking for medical tests.
No.
We're not asking for psychological tests.
Exactly. And again, that is why we need to continue the advocacy against identity politics, against tribal and religious delineations in this country, because that is the loophole they have always exploited to keep us permanently divided so that they can continue to rule us. We need to begin to get Nigerians to come together. And I'm sure the current situation, like I said, the Salah has been very bleak. The Christmas might be worse because it is projected that by next month, petrol will sell in some part of this country at 700 naira per litre. And it will keep increasing because the dynamics is such that as long as your currency is devaluing,
Yes.
The cost of importation will continue to be high. So government has refused to fix its own refineries. No state government in the entire Niger Delta has a refinery that is operating as a state-owned enterprise. It's not a shame that Rivers
Including Delta that is receiving so much in terms
Rivers,
of...
Akwa Ibom, and others have not been able to sit down to use their own 30% derivation funds to put in place the means of production in something that they are endowed with.
That will provide employment for their people.
And provide humongous revenue. They can export, they can sell locally. They have refused to give it a thought because they have free money from Abuja every month. And so the back of building flyovers and contesting for presidency every 4 years. That is their own stock in trade. So you see that there is a problem really. And Nigerians must come together because this should serve as a shock therapy. The current hardship should serve as a shock therapy that will jolt us back to our senses and begin to come together as one people to ask common questions of our leaders. Otherwise, they will keep exploiting this artificial division that they have created to perpetually rule us for their own benefit and to our own detriment.
This is very serious.
It is a serious issue.
It's very serious
And
because
let me add that Nigeria may not recover from this problem as long as we're on this path.
we pray Nigeria recovers.
We
but
may not.
The
We may
point
not.
the point is that shouldn't people be held responsible?
Those that are supposed to hold people responsible are themselves irresponsible.
Yeah, because if you say that we are suffering because a few rich people are taking our oil to Cameroon, to Benin Republic, therefore, who allowed it to happen? We have customs, we have police, we have civil, we have
police, we have the
immigration.
army, we have
So
all.
who allowed it to happen?
Yes.
I mean, you tell us that, oh, the refineries, in spite of billions being
That
voted,
have been expended, it is not working.
Who
are the so that is to show that government is not willing to do any of these things.
because you see, if there is failure, glaring failure, and you cannot tell us that, okay, we hold this person responsible for the failure, we punish this person, then that means the whole enterprise is criminal.
It's criminal. There's complicity from within. And that's why they tell you that it was favoring the rich and not the poor. And I'm like, since when the Nigerian government start caring about the poor and not longer caring for themselves? So if you look at that narrative itself, there's something about it. I don't think it's even accurate because the so-called people that are into oil businesses are the friends of those in government.
Yes.
And they have all said they support subsidy removal because it allows them not to fix prices arbitrarily. Now, if you claim that it was favoring the rich and not the poor, why are you so concerned? Because that means it's favoring you. But contrary to their narrative, that burden was on them because they must expend this money. Among all government expenditure, this was the most effective. Contrary to the narrative around it. They must spend it because you must buy petrol at the pump at the approved price. Otherwise, people will notice that government has reduced expenditure on petrol or energy subsidy. So that was what they wanted to yank off. And when these monies are removed, it is migrated to the Federation account and shared between the 3 tiers of government. So you can imagine what our governors, our national assembly members will be using the so-called savings from subsidy to do. What is the mechanism in place to check the abuse and misuse of these funds?
Even what they call palliatives.
It's going to be a form of subsidy.
Yeah,
so if you cannot do the corruption,
once upon a time they said there was some palliative during the
called Shopee
during the
Jonathan era.
No, palliative during the COVID-19.
And
nobody in my village told me that they got anything.
I didn't see anybody. I've not seen one person that has benefited from any of these social investment programs. And yet billions are being voted in there, and they have been sustained. They have been retained. If the one thing that was supposed to have gone was the so-called social investment program, because all the money that they claim to be spending is of no effect. Under that same period, Nigerians became poorer than they were before they started spending those monies. But the most effective palliative, the most effective expenditure in government was subsidy on energy. That should have been retained. In fact, we should have increased subsidies into diesel and electricity for the sake of productivity. Subsidies and investment in productivity. It's not consumption. Nobody drinks petrol for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It is a production energy commodity. No, nobody just sits down and begins to bomb petrol around town. No.
I'm just asking myself, the vulcanizer by the road,
How is he going to survive?
the welder by the
Yes.
roadside, these little petty traders,
Yes.
the
farmers,
the baba,
the barber, the farmers,
yes,
the drivers,
yes,
the transporters. If you observe, sir, most perishable goods are usually transported by mini vehicles that run on petrol from farms
yes,
to urban center because of the perishable nature.
and there's no road for trailers to
There's
pack
no
those.
road because the goods will perish on the road. And so it's going to impact negatively on the entire productive base of this country.
You can already see it. I mean, the next day after he said subsidy is gone,
By 48 hours,
everything went by 100%.
And it will continue to increase. That is why every sensible and responsible government has a mechanism to control price of energy, knowing that if you put a premium, for example, on the air we breathe, it's going to suffocate human beings to death. So it is the same thing. If you allow people to pay so high for energy to power their productivity, it's going to suffocate the economy. So the economy is already on life support as we speak.
And with all that, I have a lot of people who are applauding. Oh, this is courageous. This is courageous. I said they are not going to the market.
Some people are either misinformed or simply being hypocritical, or a combination of both. But I also agree with you that there is a lot of misinformation about this whole issue across the board, because for so many years, Washington consensus pundits and neoliberal economic advocates have sustained a propaganda war on the concept of subsidy. On whose behalf, I do not know.
And your friends in the media have all bought it because mainline
It's
media,
a serious
mainline
issue.
media, they are all in.
No, the media has given this platform to these people to misinform, mislead, and practically scam Nigerians into committing mass economic suicide by accepting subsidy removal as a courageous campaign promise and the right thing to do. And you ask them, all of you studied in the US, in the UK, and parts of Europe and the Middle East, is there any country in any of these jurisdictions that does not subsidize energy? This is the question. The United States, for example, has what is called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. What is this of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? It was established in 1975 following the oil embargo that was imposed on the West by Middle East countries because of the Arab-Israeli war. And it created serious economic problems for the West, and particularly America. America had to establish that facility
Petroleum Reserve,
where it buys crude as a government and stores. And so whenever, for example, its own subsidies on production do not seem to be able to bring down the price of petrol at the pump,
they flood
the market from there
so as to
at
bring down
below
the price.
market price, so as to reduce the price of petrol at the pump for their citizens. That is subsidy. But why are they able to do this? They have a corrupt-free governance structure. For all of Donald Trump's sins, he has never been accused of misappropriating $1 of American money. For all the sins that Boris Johnson committed against the British people, he has now been accused of misappropriating £1 of the British people. And it is the same thing across these countries that are able to provide subsidies and social welfare for their citizens. And so the lesson we need to learn from here is responsible leadership. If government can cut down and eliminate corruption, it will be able to pay not just petroleum subsidy, but it will be able to fund education adequately, fund healthcare,
I mean, just
and social services.
look at the humongous amounts we are hearing about.
Yes,
Just by the last regime.
exactly. And you are going to hear more. This is just the beginning.
Yes.
Because they're still in the honeymoon.
Humongous amounts.
Humongous.
And you are saying, in this country,
Yes.
are those people living in this country
Yes.
with their relations, their cousins in the village, cannot afford, if they have malaria, 5,000 naira, they can't afford.
There is no functional public healthcare system in Nigeria anymore. And that was why when the founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, came to Nigeria,
Yes.
I saw our governors swarming around him, all bringing different proposals to have a chunk of a $7 billion pledge to help resuscitate Nigeria's healthcare system. And I'm like, this is the shame of a country. So you mean you cannot even fund your own primary healthcare institutions in your own state?
They can't.
Something is wrong with us.
I mean, look, if World Bank, if WHO, and so on, if they don't bring money, all these communicable diseases, the work that Ministry of Health is doing, if we don't receive money from these international agencies, we can't do anything.
It's serious.
I interviewed somebody here who works with the Federal Ministry of Health in the public health. Unless these international agencies bring money, nothing will happen.
Yet, the same leaders that cannot provide health care for their citizens are behaving like an irresponsible father who drives a Mercedes-Benz,
Yes.
and then his children are hungry and walking to school in tattered uniforms.
Yes.
That's
That's
just
it.
the scenario.
But that's it.
That's it.
The kind of cars,
The governors of this country.
the kind of cars that our leaders use.
It's
You go to
unfortunate.
countries where they produce those
They
cars
don't use
and
those
they
cars.
don't use those cars.
They don't.
I lived in Germany. How many people use those
Mercedes-Benz
expensive
in Germany.
Mercedes-Benz?
Yes. They use cheaper versions of their homemade cars. Even at the level of the Chancellor of Germany.
Yes.
Modesty.
So what I see is an imperial kind of, a rogue imperial
It's a
kind of
rogue
system.
political system that has taken hold of our system. So the state has been captured, essentially. And so they have waged a continuous siege on the economic well-being of the citizens and the people that are supposed to be leading. And it's no longer sustainable. Everybody is in government for self-service. Self-service. Self.
Well, on this note, we'll bring this program to an end. I've been speaking with Majeed on what is like a criminal enterprise that governance is in Nigeria, and what he has called a rogue political system that is no longer sustainable, by the way. So, Majeed and I are warning those who superintend our affairs that the rogue political system and economic system, they are no longer sustainable. So, the people in power now, as you say, must commit class suicide.
Yes, it's imperative at this point.
Immediately change their lifestyle so that they can win the sympathy of people and take us on a different path towards national development. And I pray that many people will see the need for this and continue to speak to our leaders to do the needful. Otherwise, we don't really have much hope for this entity called Nigeria. But I believe that there will be a change by the grace of God.
By the grace of God.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah.